Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Thank you very much for doing so. And if you're a returning viewer, then welcome back. Thank you for all your support. For those of you who don't know, excuse me, my name is Rich, and I run and operate the Hard Compound. One-stop shop for all things motorsport: 4 wheels, 2 wheels, 3 wheels, 1 wheel, whatever you like. We do news and articles and the odd competition and all that kind of stuff. From F1, BTCC, IndyCar, NASCAR, all the bikes. We try and cover the lot whenever we can. Excuse me. We also provide online promotion and backing for some of the best young racers around. And you might have gathered, we do live interviews. We've done quite a few. They are all on our Facebook page in the video section, all recorded. They're also on YouTube, our YouTube channel, which is the Hard Compound, 3 words, and they're also on Twitter at the Hard Compound. We've got an Instagram page, you've probably guessed, at the Hard Compound. Go and check that out as well. Lots of good stuff on there as well. Yeah. We've had quite a few people come and have a chat to us. Some of the youngsters that I mentioned, we spoke with a young lady called Kales Cole just last week. She's a young girl from Ireland, from Cork. She's been doing great stuff in karting, and she's just gone into the F1000 series and has been doing very well. We've also spoken with Emily Linscott, who's out in the USA in the USF4 Championship with Kiwi Motorsport, being mentored by Pippa Mann on her route, hopefully, to the Indianapolis 500. So go and check her out. Her father joined us on that chat, Mark Linscott, ex-BSB and MotoGP rider back in the 70s, 80s and early 90s. If you like your 2 wheels, we've had an interview with Bjorn Esment and with 6-time British Superbike champion Shane Byrne, which was absolutely brilliant to get him on. Great guy. Cars, we do a lot of cars. Single-seater races, primarily. We've had an interview with 1985 Indy 500 winner and 1988 IndyCar champion Danny Sullivan, Mr. Spin and Win himself. We've spoken with double Indy 500 winner Ari Leyendijk. Also spoken with ex-F1 driver Derek Warwick, who's won 24 Hours of Le Mans. And just last week, 2 weeks ago, excuse me, we had David Brabham on, which was absolutely fantastic. A huge name in motorsport, of course. If you like your racing to have a roof, we've spoken to guys in the BTCC and the support packages, guys like Alex Neville, Ryan Falconbridge and Bradley Gravitt from the Minis. And Brad was on with his dad, Rob, who, of course, was the 1990 BTCC champion. Also of that era, we've spoken with Steve Soper, John Cleland, Dick Bennett, the boss of West Surrey Racing, absolute legend in motorsport. We've spoken with Louise Goodman, who was great fun, great insight into the media side of things. We spoke with Matt Neal, 3-time champion, obviously just taking a step back. We've also spoken with Michael Crease, Jade Edwards, Bradley Philpott, Chris Smiley, Rick Parfitt, Jake Hill, Ollie Jackson, Andy Prio, Tom Coronel, Ian Flux, and probably the biggest name we've had. We had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti back in February, which was absolutely incredible. So if any of those sound good, when we're done tonight, head on to Facebook, look on the video section, or head on to our YouTube and subscribe, and you can watch them all. So I've rambled on long enough. We're going to introduce this evening's guest. Obviously, we mentioned a few guys from the BTCC, past and present, and we have another current BTCC driver joining us this evening. He's also raced in the World Touring Car Championship, and he's doing a bit of electric racing in pure ETCR this year, which we're going to touch on a bit later. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Tom Chilton. There we are. Hey, Tom, good evening.
Good evening. It's funny you said your biggest legend was Mario Andretti. I was very, very fortunate a few years ago when my brother was racing at Indy 500 to get a 2-seater ride in the 2-seater Indy car. And I was gutted. I was really hoping I was going to get in the back seat with Mario, but Mario was in the one on the left, and I went out with Matty Brabham in the one on the right. And bearing in mind, I'm 6'1.5", all right? Now, the 2-seater Indy car isn't you don't sit left and right. You sit in line, okay? But the problem with in line is when you're my height, there is nowhere for your legs to go because your feet don't go past where his bottom is. So you can imagine my knees were basically touching my chin. And then on the side, on the single seaters, you have these safety bits which go all around your neck and up the front here to stop your head, obviously, getting injured. Well, they said to me, Tom, you're so tall that your shoulders are sticking out by like 5 inches and we can't get the safety piece on. And so if you go out, you need to understand this is at your own risk. And I said, well, I'm a professional racing driver and everything I do is at my own risk. So I said, I'm covered on insurance. Send me out without all the safety neck bits on. I want to go out flat out around Indy 500. And we were out there with Mario Andretti, and I was in the back seat doing 214 miles per hour average over 3 laps in the back seat. And I said to Matty before we left, I said, don't forget, I'm like nearly 1/10 of a ton in the back seat. I'm your heaviest passenger today. He left the pit lane, 100% throttle, never lifted once. And we did 3 laps full throttle. Yeah, just under 215 miles per hour. And what was crazy was Matty was flat out, who's a young, sort of up and coming superstar. But Mario is, he's like my grandpa, but he was out there doing the same speed, and it's absolutely awe-inspiring and incredible.
It's amazing. I mean, and to not be fully secured in the car as well. I think fair play to you as well. Actually, just saying about Mario Andretti, we saw, I think it was just last weekend. This is a measure of how well regarded Mario Andretti is. You've got Al Unser Jr., double Indy 500 winner, IndyCar champion from a legendary family of Unsers. And he paid to have the 2-seater ride with Mario Andretti, even though he's raced against him and he's beaten him. He said, no, I want Mario to take me out for a ride, even though Mario's 80 and this guy's done everything there is to do in IndyCar. Yeah. It's still Mario Andretti, which is cool. Amazing. No, very cool. So, firstly, thank you very much, Tom, for coming on and joining us for a chat this evening. Obviously, set off you've had a busy day, so thank you for dashing in and having a chat. Just before we go any further, I want to say thank you to Bert Taylor yet again, because Bert actually put us in touch, which is very, very good of him. He did a similar thing with Chris Smiley recently, so. And Bert's not been very well recently, as a few people know. So if you are tuning in, Bert, we hope you're very much on the mend. Hopefully you'll be on the mend.
Yeah, no, I agree. Never met a man as passionate on motorsport as Bert. He is so passionate, and I love him for it. He's brilliant, and I really do hope that he's recovering quickly.
Yeah, super. Yeah, we do. He seems to be on the mend, but obviously with what's gone on, slow steps. That's the key. Just seen a comment, Oliver Taylor, but what a guy. Yes, fully agree. So, first off the bat, how are you? Obviously, it's been, it looks like we're all going to be, from the fan side, we're going to be able to go back racing very soon. The Grand Prix's got the thumbs up, and hopefully all the BTCC will as well. How's the last year or so been for you? It must have been very odd.
So it's fantastic that we are getting the crowds back, and it was lovely to get the email today from the BRDC saying full crowds at the Grand Prix, like you said. I'm really excited about that. I'm actually going on the Sunday with my missus and kids to go and watch it.
I'll be there, but I'll be in the campsite.
And the atmosphere is just going to be incredible because we have had a whole year of been lucky to race when we have. I mean, the first half of the year, obviously, we weren't allowed to race, but the second half of the year, it was very compacted. And a massive thank you to Alan Gow in the British Touring Cars last year, because he could have easily said, this isn't going to happen, we can't race. And he made it happen. He compacted it back-to-back weekends and got it all done. And we finished the latest we've ever finished in the year. Late November. I mean, I almost needed snow tires at Brands Hatch at the end of the year. It was so cold. We got it done. We did a lot of racing. And this year, it was only one round at the beginning of the year behind closed doors at Thruxton, where there was no fans at all. Yeah. And we did have, I think it was 4,000 fans at Snetterton a couple of weeks ago, which was amazing. I was racing last weekend at Vallelunga in Italy in the Pure ETCR. And there was some sponsors, but there was no fans. So
Wow.
that's not a go ahead yet for fans in pure ETCR. But yeah, in the British touring cars, we're making it happen. And I'm at Brands Hatch this weekend, and looking forward to seeing some of the home crowd. I'm not sure if it's still a 4,000 limit or if it's more yet. I'm not quite sure.
There is certainly a limit. I don't know exactly what it is.
If there's still a limit, I'm guessing it's still 4,000 then.
Yeah,
But it's just nice to see people on the banks. You know, when I was at Snetterton coming under the bridge, you still see the cameras, you still see the banners as you're going in before the bomb hole, and it is really nice to see some fans there. And some people still want to like run up and go, "Can I have a selfie?" And it's like, "Oh, I can't have a selfie. I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to be awkward. It's just I'm literally in a few days going to Italy racing, and then I'm a few days then the next one and the next one. I've got like 6 weekends like back-to-back racing, so I can't afford to hug anyone up in my bubble. So it's not me being awkward. It's just we're in crazy times at the moment, but
but hopefully coming to the end.
It's just amazing to be racing. I've got to be honest. I'm just happy life is getting back to normal, and the UK is incredible with vaccinations. So we're lucky there.
Yeah, we've done very well. Obviously, there's been a lot of flack flying around for events that can have fans and ones that can't, and I just think it's amazing that any can have fans because of the way the world is. As I just say, full credit to everyone with the BTCC and all the tracks and all the vaccinations and everything that's gone on. And it's great to have people back at Snetterton. I've just seen, James Harmon's commented. He said it was amazing to be at Snetterton, which is just the fans have really missed it. And just above that is the name Paul O'Neill TV. I think you know who that is. He's just saying, "Grow up, Todd." But evening, Paul. We hope you're tuning in. Very good to have Paul on, and we've been trying to get Paul O'Neill on for ages, but he's very busy. But
he's always cycling, mate. I follow him on Strava. He thinks he's Bradley Wiggins. I mean, he's always cycling. It's incredible. Keep it up, Paul, keep it up. It's brilliant. He was actually, I've just quickly read it, that it really helps his diabetes. Helps monitor it, keeps him more sort of level doing all the cycling. It's brilliant. And
there's a lot of it's for charity, which is absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. The best charity ride I ever did was I went from Fleet Street in London in 2 days to Amsterdam, which was like 300 miles, and I raised £28,000 for blind children, which was a very worthwhile cause. Charity. So I got on my bike and I went. Got a very numb bum, I got to say.
I don't think I could drive to Amsterdam in 2 days. Fair play to you. That's good. That's good going. But no, seriously, Paul is great character, great on TV, good driver, good fun, and doing some great stuff off camera as well, as people will have seen. So he just put a big laughing emoji thing up. Go on, Paul, we love you. You're brilliant. Obviously we're going back racing again. Brands Hatch, home track for you. We're going to come to that pretty shortly, but what I'd like to do is sort of start. Paul O'Neill. Look, I'll come on when I can, my man. There you go. This is being recorded.
Proactive. That's what
this is being recorded, Mr. O'Neill. So you can't get out of it now. Cheers. I want to go back to the start. Obviously, done a bit of research and stuff, and you're quite keen into racing from a young age. How did you get started?
Yeah, I've always been massively keen. I blame my dad for this. He never missed a Formula One race. I was always sat there next to him, even though he'd fall asleep after about half an hour. And I would watch the whole thing. And it all really started when I was probably about 8.5 years old. We had a field in the countryside where we lived. And Dad, with his mates, got drunk in the pubs and said, "Come on, limit's £100. Let's all go and find ourselves a failed MOT'd Ford Escort Mark II." And that was the rules, over a pint in a pub. And so they did. They all found a Ford Escort Mark II, and all of them found one at like 1.2 litre, 1.3 litre, I think they did. But Dad said, "Look, I'm bigger. I found one at 1.6 litres." This brown one, which is 1.6 litre. And that's what I learned to drive in around the fields. And then then I think his dad's mates' wives started getting a bit jealous, going, "Look, he's getting away on a Sunday and having loads of fun in this field. It's not fair. We're stuck at home with the kids. Can we come along and race?" But my mum wasn't going to race. So Dad was like, "That's all right. You can race Tom." So at 8.5 years old, I had to learn very quickly to race and drift around these hay barrels around this field.
Wow.
Ford Escort Mark II. And so I was drifting Ford Escort Mark IIs from about 8.5, 9 years old. And that's kind of where it all really started before I then got into being the youngest ever, National B racing license holder at 13 years old and 10 months at the time, which my brother then beat by 2 weeks. So competitive.
Yeah, competitive straight from the off. Get your license and go racing. Oh, hang on a minute. Michael Crease has just commented. Creasy, evening.
I will call you back, Creasy. I will call you back.
He says, why haven't you rung him?
Yeah, I said I will call you back as soon as you messaged. He's rung me both times where I've been busy and I couldn't ring him back. So
that's his fault. Finding when you're
literally,
busy.
He was ringing me in the middle of briefings when I was out in Italy, and I just couldn't reply. So yeah, I will ring you back, Michael. I promise. Good
man. Good stuff. So you've gone racing. Oh, he's just written something else. I'm not going to repeat that. Yeah. So you've gone racing early. You've got your license and everything. Where did it go from? I can't concentrate. Michael Chris is commenting. Stop it, man. So from there, where did you go from the drifting and the hay bales and everything else? Was it into karting, or did you just?
So no, I didn't do karting. I had a quick go, but fundamentally, when you're 90 kilos, when you're 13 years old, you are very slow in a go-kart because you just don't accelerate in a straight line. So I didn't do karting like my brother did. So I just went straight into the BTCC cars. Right. Which was brilliant. It was 3 years and a one-make championship, the first ever letting kids race under 16 years old. And it's very sad that it doesn't exist today because they were very strong cars. I think they had like 110 meters of T45 steel tubing. They were strong as an ox. They had a 1.6 litre twin 45 Weber engine in the front with a manual 5-speed gearbox. And it was brilliant. I learned how to drive a real drive car with the same tyres. It was the Avon tyres, which were on like Formula 4s at the time. And we raced that in dry and wet. And I passed my racing license at Castle Combe down in Bath. I remember it was pouring with rain and the thick fog. And I was 13. And it kind of, that's where it went for me. I went straight into that. But then I realised, very young, that to keep getting a motorsport, you need sponsors. And I was very lucky that Dad found Virgin Atlantic from Richard Branson was my first proper sponsor, which paid for the car. Not
a bad one. I mean,
which was a cool sponsor, and that paid for the car and my first, sort of year and a half in motorsport. And then we realised, the next step really should have been the Renault Clios. That's where it should have gone for me. But then we realised at the time when we watched it on TV, a lot of people crashed into each other and wrote off, 45,000 pound chassis every weekend with T-boning because they were learning and weren't using their mirrors properly. And it was like, by the time everyone writes off a few chassis, you've basically got to the same price as it would be for a British touring car, but you can't get the sponsors for a Renault Clio because everyone's like, why would I sponsor anybody in Renault Clios with no experience? But when we were trying to pitch for sponsors and said, but I'm going to be the youngest ever British touring car driver, which gets 1 million views on ITV, instantly they're like, oh, actually, we would like to sponsor you on the basis you're the youngest in the biggest motorsport championship in the UK. So it's a lot easier to find sponsorship. So that's why I did a ridiculously big jump at 16 and went straight into a British touring car. And my first big sponsor in that was Caliber, which was a non-alcoholic beer because I was 17 years old. So it worked beautifully.
Everything kind of came together with the age and the...
yeah, exactly. And everything came together. And my first round was a bit crazy because I'd only ever raced Brands Hatch Indy before. And the first round was Brands Hatch GP, which is a very different circuit and a lot faster. And I ran round it the night before on the Friday. And the race was on March the 28th to 31st. It was somewhere around that period. Well, I only turned 17 on March the 15th. So it was only a couple of weeks after turning 17. I hadn't actually driven on the road by this stage. In my first race, I was on the podium with Matt Neal, I finished third, and Danny second. And the two people in Autosport magazine which slagged me off and said, this kid should be at school, he should be in nappies, whatever, was Anthony Reid and Tim Harvey. And so first corner, first lap, I hit off Anthony Reid and his MG and his damn fine chassis. I love Anthony. He's a good friend of mine, but this was just back in the day. I remember I was really cross. I was 17, and there's these people I never met before, although I massively respected them, really like kind of almost insulted me, and I just wanted to let them know you don't insult me. So first corner, first lap, I hit off Anthony Reid, and I remember at Druids, turn 2 at Brands Hatch on the third to last lap. Tim Harvey did, to be fair, brake a bit early, brake tested me, so I punted him off at Druids, and I finished third, and that was like it. It was like, hi, I'm Tom, I've just turned 17, I'm on the podium, and that was kind of me set, and I was in the British touring cars forever. It feels like I'm still, you know, I keep going away to do some world touring cars and Le Mans racing. I'm currently also with Hyundai Motorsport in the Pure ETCR Championship, but fundamentally my bread and butter has always been the British touring cars, and I love it for its close racing, and especially now I've got 3 children, to be in the UK a lot is obviously good to spend more quality time with them all. But I am enjoying the Pure ETCR at the moment, other than the fact I got a puncture when I was in P2 in the main race, which is where you get all your points. The battle 1 and 2 are almost irrelevant because you get such little points. Yeah. You know, I got 10 points over the 2 races, but you get 50 points in the last race. So the last ones, which really, I was in P2, and I got a puncture. My teammate in P1 got a puncture as well. We went too low with the tire pressures. So we're all pushing the limits, you know, in motorsport, like we all do, and we're feeling it at the moment, and can't wait to get back to Aragon and Spain in a couple of weeks for the next round.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I definitely want to come on to Pure ETCR a little bit later on, because it's certainly interesting. You know, because it
is exciting. It is, honestly, to drive it is incredible. My favourite bit of the whole weekend is Battle 3, which is like a super pole 1 lap. So you wake up in the morning and you have a coffee, and at 9 o'clock you are on the starting gate. You don't get any warm-up lap. You go around very slowly on these light road tyres, or treaded tyres. Sorry, they're not road tyres. They're treaded Goodyear tyres. And you go round all the way to your starting grid slowly. And it's this gate which flicks up, and you sit there and you wait. But you aren't just sitting there to go off and do 1 flying lap. It's 1 flying lap on the circuit you've not driven that day. It's the long circuit, not the short circuit we did the battles 1 and 2 on. So you get into the long circuit, which is a little lift effectively in what would be 6 gear in a normal car. But this has 1 gear because it's all electric. So you're going in very fast. Not sure the grip levels because it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so it's completely different grip levels. And they don't turn you up a little bit. They go from 300 kilowatts to 500 kilowatts, which is full power is like nearly 700 horsepower and 900 newton meters of torque, which is an awful lot more power than what you get at 300 kilowatts. And so you're leaving the box doing 3 seconds flat to 60 miles an hour, and it accelerates faster to like 100. And you're going faster and faster, and the motors are screaming in your back, and it feels like an LMP1 car to drive in terms of straight line speed. You've got a flat floor, which is trying to make it like a GT car, but it's fundamentally a touring car on treaded tires. Wow. And you turn in first corner and you just hear the tires screaming, and you're hanging on that last millimeter on the exit, the curve flat out. The G-force is incredible. And that for me is a massive buzz as a driver. It's a huge challenge. You get given twice the amount of power, not sure on the grip levels on the circuit without any practice. And you just got to nail it. And for me, that is like what it's like to be a proper driver, racing driver, because you just got to feel it first time there and get that feeling. You're not looking for braking boards, like braking at 140 yards or whatever. You are looking at the apex and going, it feels like it should be now. And that is how you drive on the limit. You don't use boards. You use boards when you've done like lots and lots of laps in a row, and you know if you brake that meter later, that's too late. But when you just get one go at it, you're not looking at any braking points. You know, even all the simulator work in the world you can do, your grip levels change on a racetrack every 5 degrees. The grip level changes. It changes how it is on the brakes and your turning, whether it's understeer or oversteer. You have to adapt to driver really, really quickly. And when the car weighs 1.8 tons, which is 500 kilos heavier than the British touring car, and with less grip, but way more power, you've got to react really fast. And I feel like it's like the biggest adrenaline buzz. I actually got out of the car. Friend of mine, I've been doing this for like forever, you know, since I was 13 and I'm now 36. I got out after my Battle 3 and both my hands were shaking. And anyone who knows me, I'm like almost half asleep when I drive. I'm so relaxed. And both my hands were shaking because I enjoyed it that much. I was like,
you were so wide at the end
on the limit wide. And I keep watching my lap back, which you can watch on YouTube if you just punch in like Pure ETCR Battle 3. I was in Group A. I'm like 56 minutes in, and I keep watching it, and it's like millimeter perfect. I had like a little bit overdriving at the rear occasionally, but you've got to push to the limit. Otherwise, you'll be like, oh, I wish I had one more lap. I could go a bit harder. You don't do that on a super pole. You almost go over the limit just to make sure you get to it first time, and it's brilliant fun. Like, I absolutely love it.
That does sound awesome. That sounds really good. Yeah, so I'm going to come on to your teammates and stuff later on, because I love my World Touring cars, and you've got a couple of guys on there as well. We're going to come to those guys a bit later. Just want to take it back, if we may. Obviously, that first season in the touring cars, you've gone out, punted a couple of chaps off, and you've taken the podium and stuff to like announce yourself. I'm just wondering, because that was it with Barwell?
That was Barwell Motorsport, yeah.
And it came about because of the sponsorship and everything. When you first got in that car, how different was it to what you've been doing before? You've been in like the BRSCC and all that kind of stuff. Does a touring car even then feel completely different to?
Yeah, it was a lot faster at accelerating, and the brakes and the tires were far better than anything I'd driven. So I didn't just go straight from T cars to, well, I did in terms of years. I did from 2001 to 2002. I did just change, but I had to get my International C racing license to get in the British touring cars, and so I had to do X amount of races and signatures. And so I actually was doing, with Barwell Motorsport, I was in the VW Vento and the Winter German Saloon Car Championship, which I won. And I was also in a Global GT Light, which is 600cc Yamaha engine in the boot, which is basically like a Radical. So, but on the same weekend at Brands and Snet, I was running out of Parc Fermé out of a downforced rear-wheel drive sequential box Global GT Light, and running straight into my 2.8 litre front-wheel drive manual gearbox and driving the other side of the road, other side of the car, touring car. So I was having to alternate between front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, downforce, no downforce, sequential, manual box, and it was crazy to get my license up. And a few weeks later, I was testing in Spain with Chris Goodwin, who at the time was the McLaren test driver, who's a legend, in the British touring car. At 16 years old, I did a lot of testing down Le Mans Club. That's where Barwell Motorsport, Barwell Leisure makes their money. And so there's a racetrack down there, and I was testing with Chris Goodwin. And the first couple of days, you know, I was quicker than Chris in a touring car at 16 years old, and I'll never forget it. We're in the back of this hire car, and he's on the phone to Ron Dennis, who was at the time in charge of McLaren, saying, "Yeah, I'm being beaten by this 16-year-old at the moment." But then I must say, on day 3, he beat me by 0.2 of a second, and he was faster than me. And Chris was such an incredible guy to work with, because I could learn an awful lot from him with his experience, and see, you know, how he's beating me, and like, you know, and what a guy of his level does, you know. And and then I got thrown in the deep end at Brands Hatch GP in that first race, but I absolutely loved it, and I've loved the British touring cars ever since. It does have surprising amounts of grip for a car which is so heavy, and the racing is just incredibly close, absolutely so close, and that's why we love watching the British touring cars.
Exactly, you know, it's why it's got such a huge following, you know, because you're just guaranteed, you know, somewhere down the field there's going to be some major excitement going on, isn't, you know, and it's, you know, and it's short and fast and punchy, and it's great. Something that has always intrigued me, I mean, you had a quick chat off air, and I mentioned I like my bikes as well. Your teammate was Aaron Slate. Which has always sort of intrigued me, because he made the jump from 2 to 4 wheels, and he was quite good on 2 wheels. I just like wondered how you sort of got on with him, and how you sort of worked with him with his 2-wheel background.
So yeah, it was so nice, because this guy was basically like the most famous sportsman in New Zealand at the time. Was sort of Jonah Lomo from the rugby team, the skiing train. And Aaron, he was runner-up in the World Superbikes, that famous Honda Castrol 111 bike, which we see photos everywhere. And what's really frustrating is I know Aaron would have been champion the next year when they brought out the new V engine in that Honda. It did, but Aaron wasn't allowed to race, sadly, because of his head. So he came to the British touring cars, and what was really interesting is, I'll never forget, the data engineer looked and he goes, "I just realised that Aaron does around 37 meters more a lap every lap than you on the circuit. And it's because where his inside wheel was on the apex was where my outside wheel was. Because we corner cut, don't we? We as long as we've got enough traction to get out, we gain so much mid corner by corner cutting. So we corner cut. But on a motorbike, your knee, you don't, you lose grips. You just don't corner
cut. Your knee
cut
hits the curb, and
that was one of the things I remember at the beginning. It was like, oh my gosh, you cut so much corner, Tom. Please go out and follow me. But he was brilliant. He was such a legend, and it was really strange for me when I was 17. In my first race, because there was this thing called autograph session where you get sort of 500-600 people try and get your autograph in the space of 40 minutes, whatever it was. And I was thinking, they must be all queuing for Aaron, because I was like, honestly, none of you know me. I've not done this before. I'm just a little guy in a club racer, I was like, they're all queuing for Aaron's light, but they kept them wanting my autograph. I was like, but I've done nothing. Aaron's a legend, and like, you want to go up there for like Matt Neal and James Thompson and David Leslie, bless him, and James and Plato and all these other drivers who are on the grid for years and years. I was like, why are you coming down here? And I was thinking, it's Aaron's light. But they kept asking for mine, and as the year progressed, I started getting like proper queues, and it was a very surreal thing. First year in the British touring cars, I can't describe it to you because I was just kid at school who wasn't very good at sport, and so young in motorsport. You think, well, no one knows who I am yet, because motorsport is one of those things. I think when you've been in it for years and years, you have a following because you've been in it a long time. At the start, if you don't. But it was a massive championship. Now I look back at it, to go into it at 17, it was bonkers.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy I did.
At it, and do you ever think, do you ever just think, now you've been in it for a while, you think, that was mad. That was a really sort of crazy, and then to go out and finish third, obviously people knew who you were then, and did it, and as you say, it kind of snowballed from there. But do you ever look back every now and again and think that was a bit of a crazy start?
It was a mad start, and you don't realise the drivers you're on the track with at the time. Van Muller and Plato were having a big battle with each other, and Plato, and there was just loads of quality drivers on the grid. Turkington's been on it since I was on it. He was an atomic Kitten MG, mate. I was like,
I remember that one. The yellow. Team Atomic.
And it's funny. I used to follow Colin. I remember following him at Thruxton, and I remember the way he turned into a couple of the corners. I did say to my manager, Andy Constable, who taught me how to drive. I remember saying to him, I think Colin would be better in a rear-wheel drive car because he turns in very late and hard. And I said, front-wheel drive, you need to turn in earlier and slightly slower on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And I remember following him saying he drives like a rear-wheel drive driver, but he's in the front-wheel drive car. I remember saying it to him when I was 17 years old. Well, he's been in for a couple of decades now in rear-wheel drive, and he's won 4 championships in it. So I was right in saying that.
You spotted it. You can take the credit for his titles, spotting it. No, he's done quite well. So that first season obviously has gone very well. Then you switched to Arena Motorsport. I've just got a note here with Civics, Honda Civics. Obviously, a bit of a different car to the Astra Coupe that you had.
Yeah, it was a lot more nimble.
Initially.
It was a shorter wheelbase. It turned in faster. Had a lot of rear steer. And I was in with Matt Neal and Alan Morrison, another motorbike rider. So he was British motocross champion for Honda, and it's through him and his Honda contacts who got Honda racing together, which was a really cool gig because we were going to watch the powerboat racing. We were off to the Isle of Man to watch the TT with Honda racing. So we were like pulled into like the bikes and the boats. So it was like a big deal, Honda racing. The hospitality was really cool. I remember the bags they used to give out like for the sponsors were really cool, like the party bag I call it. It was mega, and learning a lot off Matt Neal. He's 3 times British champion for a reason. He's a very good driver. He's got so much experience. I think Matt's potentially probably one of the best drivers on the grid at setting up a race car. And I look at a lot of the older guys. You look at your Gabriele Tarquinis, your Van Mullers, your Matt Neals, your Jason Platos.
Yeah,
they are very good at setting up touring cars, and that is a big part of it because at the moment I've been in this a long time now. Like, was this? I can't remember. Well, was it 16th year or something on and off in the BTCC or something. But I've realised the top 15 now in the BTCC, any one of them could win a championship if they had the right car.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is incredible. You just need to be in the right car. And the top 15 are so close that having the edge on the practice session or the qualifying or the race is getting the setup right on the car.
Right.
And it is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just pulled my old engineer back who helped me win 3rd overall in the British and the World Championship to Snetterton. Because I think having a good relationship with your teammate where they understand what you're meaning is a big part of it. You know, I can say what I'm saying, but unless somebody understands what I'm saying, it's pointless. And he completely understands what I say, Nick. So it really helps. And actually, the last race at Snetterton, because he got thrown in at the deep end, like literally out of Snetterton, had to learn everything very quickly. So,
right.
But by the last race at Snet, you know, I went from last 30th up to 19th. So yeah, like 30th to 19th, I think it was. Did get held up a bit in the middle of the race. I probably would have got maybe up to like 15th. But I was overlaying all the data and I was basically within 1,000th of all the fastest guys on the grid in Sector 2 and Sector 3. And I was losing 1/10 of Sector 1. But I think that's because I was held up always at Sector 1 with a car I was kind of racing. So I feel like I'm getting there with the BMW this year. And at Brands Hatch is going to be a new challenge because looking at the weather, being British, I think it's going to rain. And so we're going to have to now figure out a wet setup on a slow speed circuit, you know, and it's just getting the best out of your package. And I drive differently, I think, to Adam Morgan. I think Adam Morgan's a fantastic driver. And I do think we have slightly different driving styles, which is why I'm having to now think about maybe a setup more for me, which works for me. And I'm really looking forward to this weekend. I love Brands. It's a great circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great one for for drivers and for spectators. But and you say about Matt Neal and you mentioned Jason Plato. They're obviously the guys who are obviously there's only Jason on the grid. Matt's still involved, but both seem to get a lot of stick, and they always have done it. It sort of became tribal, didn't it? The whole Plato Neal thing, and I think people sometimes need to step back and just have a look at what they've done for the BTCC. Those two guys, because they've having been in it for so long, even people who don't follow the BTCC know Matt Neal and Jason Plato because it just crops up in motorsport all the time. And and they're both just like two really great guys. I mean, we had Matt on back end of last year before he announced what he was doing, and I tried to get out of him, but he didn't. But it's great to have these kind of guys still involved, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's nice, Matt's commentating on Eurosport for Pure ETCR. We were texting each other over the weekend. I was giving him some of the regulations so he could get heads up on it. And then I see him at the racetracks. Obviously, he's running Team Dynamics with Gordon Shedden and Daniel Rowbottom in it. And Gordon Shedden's triple British champion as well. And I was teammates with him when I was at Team Dynamics, which I loved. It's a fast car, that Honda. It's a great car. And Team Dynamics are so experienced. And Barry Plowman is he's the chief engineer there. And him and Matt worked together for years. But that's a good example of having a good engineer with a good driver. You get a good combination and lots of success. 6 British championships they've had. Yeah,
which is it's not too bad.
Not too bad, is it? Yeah, we'll take
right.
that.
I mean, it'll do.
It'll do, yeah.
Just seen a comment come up from Paul Ablett, a quick fit. The guy, Paul Ablett. We're going to come to that later on, Paul. Just while we're on the subject of Paul, he did put a comment earlier on. He said, "Do you miss having Ollie Jackson, your mate, as a teammate?" Because he said that you and him were very good, to him, to Paul when you were at Motorbase. And said, do you miss him?
No. Hi, Paul. Yeah, no, Ollie is a good mate of mine, and his mum and dad are next door neighbours to my mum and dad.
He said when we came on the chat, I didn't realise that. He told us.
There's a public footpath which walks between both of them. I actually walked past their house actually a couple of days ago. But Ollie's a great guy. I got on really well with Ollie and James Cole and Sam Tordoff and Nick Hamilton. All my teammates I had at Motorbase got on really well with. Like, I was really, really lucky with my teammates. I think in general, the BTCC has some really good drivers, not only with speed, but they're great personalities and characters, and they're nice guys, you know. And it's nice to race with nice people, you know. But on track, you know, as Anthony Reid would say, you put the helmet on, they're completely different animals. You get the red eyes, and you know, it's so close. This weekend at Brands Hatch, depending on how qualifying is, I'm pretty sure you'll have 30 cars within 1 second, maybe 30 cars within 8/10. And that's incredible.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's crazy, and it's so close this year. But yeah, and obviously, you know, Ollie's, you know, at MB Motorsport, and he's had a decent start. So yeah, we'll see how he goes.
Again, he's had quite a few wins now on that new Ford Focus over the last couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of last year, he went well.
First one was at Silverstone, and yeah, he's progressing and doing really well. And I was cheering from the sidelines after my DNF at Snetterton when he came in race 2, finished P3. I was like clapping, just really happy for him. You know, he's a great guy, and he's working hard at it to be fast. You know.
Yeah, really nice bloke. Really nice bloke. He's been on twice actually. He's a good lad. Indira Flack, photographer. Oh, yeah, person we spoke to earlier on. Hi, Indira. Thank you for tuning in.
Hello. I'm going to go see my photo in the Silverstone Museum on Sunday at the British Grand Prix. I'm going to go see it.
So there you go. And we have spoken about French polishing, but we'll polishing the trophy. She said that was a very good impression of Anthony Reid. Hidden talent. There you go.
He's galoshes. He wears galoshes when it rains. I love that word. I've never heard it in my life until Anthony.
Galoshes, the waterproof shoe.
Tom, when it rains, do you not have galoshes? And I go, what's galoshes? Well, it's these shoes you put over your race boots. They don't get wet. I get in my MG, and it's a damn fine chassis. I love Anthony. He's brilliant. He's like an absolute ledge.
That was very good. Fantastic.
It's all the Top Gear work. We do a lot of Top Gear work together, and he's like, that's fine. I'll take the stretch limo, and I'll go and drift it around a corner. He nearly took out the control tower at Liddon Hill when we were filming the other day. It's like he just kept his foot flat. He's like, I get a bit more oversteer. I just need to raise the tire pressure to 70 psi, and I'm like, it won't last to 70. Like one lap, and then bang, it blows up. You know, these old stretch limos, they have like, it's really cool. It's like a Chrysler stretch limo. It had like this white rim. I think they're quite rare. And like he's popping them off. I think we got through like 4 tires. I've got to search the country for another one so we can do another take. At the end of the day, it's just like he's one of a kind, mate. I love him.
Oh, brilliant. I'm going to come to Top Gear a little bit later on because obviously lots of good stuff going on there. Again, just going sort of back, you know, into the career and fast forward and stuff. Well, you know, went single car entry 2004, 2005. Had some wins, which is all good. And you had your first win at Silverstone in the BTCC. That must have felt pretty cool to have got.
That was cool, yeah. So, bear in mind, I started at 17 in the British touring cars. I didn't get my first win until I was 19 years old, but it was such a cool win because it was an exciting race for many reasons with Anthony Reid and Matt Neal actually pushing each other on the grass and stuff. But I went from 10th to 1st. So I drove my socks off, and it was a great win. It was a proper win as my first win. And it's funny, when you first won, it all just becomes a lot easier. Everyone says it. I don't know why. Well, you got the monkey off the back, and then everything works after that. And after that, I was set, mate. I was happy in the British touring cars. Once you get your win, and you know you're supposed to be there. When you keep not quite getting the win, you think, should I stay? But you know, but then when you get it and you had more and more, and I'm really happy.
Yeah, cool win to get. Just got to know, I don't remember what the reasoning was. You sat out round 1 and round 10, the first and last rounds of that season. You didn't compete. Was that just a funding thing, or was it?
So that was the year after. Yeah, that was 2005. So I was signed with MG DTM, which fell through because MG went bust.
Right.
So Zytec were developing it because I did the LMP1 racing with Zytec, which I won 2 out of 5 races in LMP1 at 20 years old. They were designing the MG, which had something crazy like 20% less drag and 10% more downforce than the Audi and the Mercedes. So I was pretty confident I was going to rock up and be pretty quick in this thing. They had some really clever aerodynamics running through the center of the car. It was awesome. And they built the engine Zytec. But yeah, they announced it in Moscow. And that it was happening, and then 2 weeks later the company went bust. And this was before the Chinese then bought it. So it was then canned. But by that point, I'd missed the first round of the BTCC. So we went and got the old Honda out of the stables. And I put it on pole at Thruxton by 4/10, which was incredible because the Civic was, a lot less it's a lot less aerodynamic than the Integra, which Matt Neal was in with the Dynamics at the time. And yeah, we smacked it on pole. I remember having a lot of rear steer out there, and I loved it. And then I was doing quite well in the championship. But then one of the rounds, we really wanted to get into Le Mans 24 hours with the Zytek.
Right.
Because I always wanted to win Le Mans 24 hours, and still to this day I've not done it. Every time it's clashed with the British Touring Car round, and there's been loads of excuses why it's not happened, but it hasn't. I thought I was going to do it in the Zytek, but we needed to get a free entry to it. Right. So the only way of doing that was to win Petit Le Mans 10-hour race in Atlanta.
Right.
So I went out there. That was Michael Crease trying to ring me. Thanks, mate. Trying to ring me. Must know I'm live. Why are you ringing me? I went out there racing, and we qualified pole. We were in pole position, which was incredible. We met Hinari Shimoda, who was a Japanese kid. It was very fast. He was sponsored by Sega, and we smacked it on pole. And I was thinking, here we go. We're going to go win Petit Le Mans 10-hour race. But my teammate started the race, and he crashed first corner, first lap. 10-hour race. Yes, that was it. And it was like bonkers because the level we had arena modes, but we had all the best guys out there. Like the mechanics on the car now are mechanicking on Ash Sutton's car right now on the BTCC. He was Brenton. He was like my number one mechanic, and we had some seriously great engineers and team on the working on it. I even had these physios, mate. All right, this is the level we went to back in 2005. I had a physio who was physioing me while I was on oxygen masks and oxygen tanks, and they were giving me blood transfusions with plasma blood. So we had no powered steering. At 86 miles an hour, it could have driven upside down. It had that much downforce. And the lactic acid in my shoulders and arms, I cannot explain to you because it had no powered steering. The steering was so heavy and the thing had so much downforce, and it was a lot heavier than a single seater. Your arms were full of lactic, your neck was full of lactic acid, like everything hurt, like really hurt. I was thinking, how am I going to do a 3-hour stint in this car? And you've got to do 10 hours on and off between just me and one teammate, not 3 teammates. It was just one other teammate. And so that was it. We were having plasma blood, oxygen tanks, and physio. And I had this all planned. We had it all ready to go. And then he crashed first corner, first lap. So it didn't happen.
After all that, was it almost a relief partly because of the shoulders?
It was a bit of a relief, to be honest, because I was it's quite a dangerous business doing that because you could get blood poisoning, all sorts of things. Yeah. But it's a level you go to win a motorsport.
Yeah, no, exactly. Saying that, obviously, you missed the first and last rounds, but you still took 4 wins. I've got it here. You got 4 wins, 5 podiums, never finished outside the top 10. 5th overall, not bad. Missing 2 rounds. It was pretty good year.
It was a good 5th overall, and I missed 2 rounds, which was 6 races. Was pretty incredible. It was a fantastic year, really. I look at it back then, and I kind of think I should have won the British Touring Car Championship when I was 20 years old in 2005 if I just had not done the DTM Dream and LMP one out in America. But you try these things because when you're young, you think, the German touring car would be a good thing to do, and you think, getting to the Mont 24 hour and having a pop at that would be a good thing to do. So you're never going to say no. And then the next year it was a big year. I was signed with Vauxhall with Fabrizio Giovanardi. I said part of the contract is you pay me X and I get a test in the Aussie VA out in Australia, because AAA at the time, obviously they had Craig Lowndes and Jamie Whincup. And Jamie Whincup, isn't he? Sorry.
I think Jamie Whincup's still going, isn't he?
He's still going. And the first year he won the championship was that year which I went to test with him.
Wow.
And they said to me, I flew away to Brisbane in Australia for a 4-lap run on used tyres. Right. So it's not many laps, is it? I didn't know the circuit. It was 4-lap runs on used tyres. And I think I was 1.9 tenths off his fastest time. And I was trying to get the Bathurst 24-hour drive.
Right.
which would have been really cool.
Yeah.
But Roland Dane, who ran the company at the time, said, "You're just too young. You're 20 years old." And I said, "I'm racing the British Touring Car, okay?" And he's like, "So you're 20 years old," and he just thought I was too young at the time to race his car.
That's a
But
shame.
either way, I went out there and tested with him. I was pretty close, I think, for not knowing the circuit, and to the guy who won the Aussie V8 Championship that year. I loved every second of it. I think if I really pushed it, I could have maybe gone out and lived in Australia and done the whole Aussie V8 thing. It was my kind of driving. Like I said, my coach, Andy Constable, he taught me to drive imagining that half the car's full of water. So when you lift off the throttle or you slightly accelerate or brake and turn, all that water then moves and then it hits the other side and it sloshes. That's kind of how I got taught to drive, weight distribution. And an Aussie V8 being heavy is weight distribution, which is half the reason I'm loving my pure ETCR car so much, because it's how I learned when I was 13 years old to drive cars. So I do like a heavy car. And when I went into an LMP1 car, I had to drink 2 cans of Red Bull to go fast, because you got to really push it to be fast. You're going flat into 180 mile an hour corners and it's flat. Whereas in my touring car, I go down 2 gears and brake. So it's a very different thing.
Different style of driving.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you mentioned those Aussie supercars. I mean, even now, even today, I mean, they're absolute monsters, aren't they? They're absolutely brilliant machines. I personally, from a personal point of view, without my neutral hard compound hat on, I follow. I kind of like the Walkinshaw Andretti Holdens. Chaz Mostert. Excuse me. Obviously, he's a bit of a lad, but just all, you've got Shane Van Gisbergen's out there doing amazing things. I mean, the cars are absolutely amazing, aren't they? They're absolute brutes.
They're heavy, mate. Like when you accelerate, when I was driving it, I remember describing it as when I accelerated, 660 horsepower with a manual gearbox in those days with a clutch. Yeah, now they're sequential, but back in those days it was manual. And I remember I was looking at the blue sky when I was accelerating. When I braked, it had so much like Pro Dive. It was so heavy. I remember I was like looking at the tarmac under brakes, vroom, vroom, like looking at the throttle, and then turning in. It was like dinosaur suspension. I was like lifting inside front rights, and in those days it was on like Sachs dampers, which I don't want to go into too much detail, but the way it displaced the fluid and the damper, it was like kind of like running a lot of high speed. Like initially it was quite stiff, and then it just like blew off. So you had to use a little bit of throttle, and it was like wait, and to get to the exit, and then it was like bang, and the whole thing sat down, and you like had a little drift right on the exit. But as long as you kept it flat and you got it right, and you didn't have to lift, and it was flat, it was mighty up the straight. It was mega. Wow. I absolutely loved driving it. It was a beast to drive. I think it would have been quite tricky on a street circuit. Because it's so heavy. When it starts going wrong, it's so heavy that the weight it wants to keep going. So you think on a circuit, it's always nice. You got a bit of grass on the exit or whatever, but on a street circuit, you got no room for error. So
because they still go around Adelaide, don't they? I think it's the Adelaide circuit they still go around. Imagine slamming the brakes on at the end of the straight where Mansell's tyre went. Oh, crikey!
Boom! Yeah.
No thanks. Well, yeah, maybe once, but I wouldn't do it again. So say hi to a few people. Alistair Jeremy, Bob Yesco. Michael Crease is laughing at phoning you. Thank you, Creasy. And John Kane, he's a marshal up at Knock Hill, big follower of the hard compound. And he says he's met he's met you a few times when he's been marshalling up there. So yeah, shout out to the marshals. We love them. Can't go racing without them.
Absolutely, mate. I mean, honestly, just thank you so much to all the marshals, because without you guys, we couldn't go racing. 100% we could not go racing.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, too dangerous to just rock up and drive around. We need people to help us massively, and big respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Just coming back, 2007, you were teammates with Giovanardi and Alan Menu. That's a pretty cool trio in a touring car. Cool, I think a lot of people would love to see that. Right.
It was a close year, that, and we were very close in the manufacturers between Seat, which was Jason Plato and Darren Turner at the time, and we were really worried going into the last round at Thruxton that there was a chance that Seat were going to win the manufacturers championship. Now Giovanardi was leading the drivers championship, but the manufacturers wasn't tied up. Now I wanted to win it because I remember I got a £10,000 bonus if we won the manufacturers, so I was game to win it anyway. But they said, look, we want to employ Alan Menu as a third driver to just secure extra points, make sure we get it, And I remember on free practice too, I think Alan Hyde or somebody on the commentary was nicknaming me Tigger Tom because I was bouncing so much around church, like it was just bonkers. And I just said, this is crazy. Like, they're not calling Giovanardi or anyone else Tigger Tom or Tigger Giovanardi or whatever. And I said, it's got to be something wrong with the dampers. And so they put it on the dyno. And that was when me and my engineer at the time, Simon Cumberbatch, we realized that all year long we hadn't had the same dampers. And out of 20 clicks in the Penske damper, I was 18 clicks out. And I was very frustrated because I think I got to the point where I was over driving, which then makes you slower again because you don't understand why you're slow. Anyway, we all got the same stuff because obviously Ian Harrison wanted us all to be as fast as possible to win the manufacturers. And I qualified pole by 4/10 to Giovanardi and Menu in the same car. And it was a very surreal moment of Kevin Berry, who is, he's going to engineer me this year actually at Thruxton. But he is an absolute legendary engineer. Everything he engineers, he wins championships in. And I'll never forget him sat in the Vauxhall bus with Menu and Giovanardi pointing at the data going, why did you do this? Why didn't you roll in the speed there? Why did you brake too late there and get a bad exit? And he's like telling these two who are like my heroes, and they are my heroes, they're legendary drivers. Like, you should have done what Tom did here. And I was like 21 years old, and it was kind of like, you should have done what I did here. And I was like, and it was kind of like one of those really weird moments, especially as all year I'd been slower and not really understanding why, other than I'm just young. It was an incredible moment, and I'm very happy that we won the manufacturers championship. I was a bit gutted I didn't win the race because I was leading the race, and then got the call, can you let Giovanardi through for the championship? And I backed off, which was pointless because I then got a front left puncher anywhere and went straight off at church at 130 miles an hour. So I wouldn't have won it anyway. He's got a puncher, but and I think Menu had a puncher as well. I think we both got front left punchers. It was an interesting year, but it's great to work with these legends and overlay data and see how they tick. Yeah, no, it's and also just coming back to, it's quite cool that you sort of managed to get one up on him as well. It's quite. I'm gonna lie, mate. It was a cool moment. Yeah. It was a cool moment. Yeah, you gotta love that. Just very quickly thereafter, you went to Team Dynamics for a year. What is now Team Dynamics? Was that to do with Matt Neal from previously? So me and Matt obviously worked previously in 2003 at Honda Racing together. So Matt knew me and I knew him, and we're good mates. And we did a driver swap. So I jumped in his car and he jumped in my Vauxhall Vectra, and I jumped in his Honda Civic. And it was really interesting. I'm old now, so I don't care what I say. I'm just honest about everything. But it was really interesting. The first half of the year, I was teammates with Gordon Shedden, he was always just pipping me in qualifying. If he was qualifying third, I was qualifying fourth. We were up against the turbo diesel Seats that year, which were faster. Usually they were 1 and 2, and then it was usually between me and Shedden for the second row, or Tom Onslow Cole and Matt Neal, I think it was in the Vauxhall. And it was a competitive year, but I remember I was struggling the first half and just getting pipped by Gordon. It was because I was overdriving. I was overdriving because that's what had been ingrained to me the year before at Triple Eight. And Matt Neal obviously wanted the best for me. I was racing his car and his team, and he said, Tom, I'm going to book you in with a sports psychologist, a legend called Paul Castle, who very sadly a couple of years ago passed away through cancer actually. But it was an incredible man, and he did so much for me in how I prepped myself in the weekend and throughout the weekend. And the second half of the year, I was really fast. Second half of the year. And I loved it, and finished the year standing on the roof with Sonic written on my back on my overalls, winning at Brands Hatch at the end of the year. And, crazy hair of those days. But I was going to say the hair. Yeah, the hair is quite well known of that era, isn't it? It was. Yeah, it was in those days. Yeah, It was Flash and Sonic. That's what it was. And
Brilliant.
and we had a great end to the year, and I really enjoyed it. And I loved working with Gordon, and I loved working with Barry Plowman was my engineer at Team Dynamics, and I loved every second of it. And it's a big thank you to Matt and also the team, because they really got me back into the right mindset for the rest of my touring car career. And it is a really big thing. We're so close. We'll get frustrated if we're like 1,000th of a second or 100th of a second slower. Which you're 10th off, you think I might as well pack my bags and go home. I mean, it is so close. It's like ridiculous,
isn't it? That can be literally like a 10th. Well, can be 5, 6, 7, 8 places down the back of the grid or more. And again, it's why we love it. It's why we love it.
I'm excited for this weekend to see how many cars. It doesn't matter which 10th of a second is. If it's the first 10th, from 1st to 6th, or if it's from 6th to 15th or wherever it is in the times this weekend, it'll be really interesting to see how many cars are in the same 10th of a second. How many different manufacturers, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, different weights. But you'll get an awful lot of cars in the same 10th. And it would just be if only I had just farted, I would have gone up 6 places. I mean, it's going to be that close.
I think we could be in for a treat if you get the in-car camera at some point this year. He's on pole. There we go. Look, he's that's it. Top 3. No, that was just gone down. Yeah, we've just gone down a notch there. Super, love it.
Yeah.
Obviously 2009 back to arena, was it 2009 and 10 and 11 was it? And you were sort of a bit further down the order, but it seemed to pick up towards the end of that time.
Yeah, so 2009 was when we first got Aon on board as a proper sponsor.
Yeah, love that car, by the way.
It was a cool car. Yeah, so 2009 we had I remember the engine was the issue. The engine was the issue in 2009. Fundamentally, we were really down on power, and that's when we looked at all the loopholes and the regulations. We thought, look, they had turbo diesels with the Seat, and we thought now we want to find some loopholes, and we looked at everything, and we found you could run an LPG engine, Mountain Tune LPG, when I was in Ford, and we were a rocket ship, mate, and everyone knows it. We were fast, and I was British independent champion. Tom Wansley Cole was my teammate, and Andy Neat is the third driver, and it was a great car. It was awesome, and it handled really nicely as well. And then 2011 we went back to a petrol engine, and it was a good car, but it wasn't as good as the gas car. And we didn't finish as high up in the championship. I think it might have been 7th or something. I can't remember.
7th,
Oh, well, I guess look at that. So so we went from
you knew it anyway. You knew it.
Yeah, so we went from 5th to 7th, and we didn't win the Independence Championship. But we had a good run at it, and then we thought it's time to do something different. The rules were changing to NGTC. And I was scared the first year of changing rules that there'd be lots of one car's a lot faster than the others, and we're not quite sure where to get the rules at. And now the rules are pretty good. Everyone's pretty close. I think the rules now are so good that it's all so close. The only thing which isn't right, and everyone in the whole paddock knows it, is the fact that all the Swindon engines have the same power. But the problem is the rear-wheel drive car has more traction.
Right.
So the rear-wheel drive Swindon should have less power. Hence, the BMW's got turned down because we're rear-wheel drive, which is why Sutton is so fast. He's faster. Oh, my dog. Hang on. 2 secs.
Interruption. Canine. Seeing the comments, all good. I just want to say a quick hi to James Harmon. He's been watching for a while. Hi, James. Dog. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I got
with your mate Ollie. Has he got a dog or a cat? Is it dog? Cat? Can't remember, but we just had this sort of cat.
Josh Cook's got a cat, Alan.
Alan the cat.
BTC racing chat shows. Yeah, he's famous, mate. Alan.
Yes, I remember seeing that now. Yeah. Wow. But cool. So obviously Pound one. I mean, just quick, when you mentioned you had Andy Neate as your teammate, I don't open up a can of worms here because we know what's gone on in the last few weeks with Andy. Just want to say, personally, I just think it's a bloody miracle that the guy's even, able to drive a car, because he was almost killed, wasn't he? He almost died in an awful accident, Silverstone, and it was bad. And obviously we had the issue.
He's got a lot of titanium down this part of his neck.
Yeah, because he broke a couple, didn't he?
If you walk in the room, he can't look left. He has to use all of his body to look, because he is all like metal.
He's all rigid.
But do you know what? All credit to Andy. For people who don't know, he does care, and he is a racer. He loves racing. And I know sometimes it looks like he's making mistakes, but he went out there and he helped pay for the cars to be fixed, not just his, but the other ones at Thruxton at the beginning of this year. He really does try hard, and he didn't turn up at Snetterton round 2 because he's worried what everyone was thinking, and put Jessica Hawkins in the car. But if people who don't know, Andy, he's perceived very differently, I think, on social media to how he is in real life.
Yeah.
There was one race I was racing against Andy Neate, I've got to be honest, at Brands Hatch GP. And he was holding in front of me for 3rd, and I was in 4th. And he did make a mistake on the last lap. I think it was the second last lap at the Sheen Corner, Dingledale, the old Dingledale. And he just ran wide. The sun was quite low, and he made a mistake. But that was his chance to get a podium. He was very close to it. He has his moments where he's actually not too slow. He's quite fast sometimes. But, he's been out of it for a long time. So he spent a lot of time, with his kids. I think it's Aiden karting, and he's doing really well at karting.
Yeah, he's out in France, Spain. He was out somewhere. He was out somewhere international karting, and he did really well.
His son's racing really well, and he's like, well, I'm your dad. I want to go back out and race too. So he's giving it a go again, which is brilliant. He's had quite a few years out. So it's from when he was last in it. I do think the championship's even more competitive. So when you have some time out, it's always harder to just jump back in, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I saw one of the things that the guys at Motorbikes put a little video out, and he even said himself, he said, last year caught me by surprise, because it's changed so much since I was in it before. And you mentioned about the social media thing. Everyone jumps on his back. I mean, I don't know Andy. I've never spoken to him. I'd like to get him on here for a chat, but I don't want to. And the fact that he was almost hounded out of Snetterton because of the grief that he got at Thruxton, I think that was, really poor form, to put it mildly. And, they don't know him, and 99.99% of people, me included, we're not racing drivers. We don't know what goes into it, and, when like reaction times and how difficult it must be with BTCC cars whizzing around in your mirrors and in front of you. And you made the point about his mobility. I think it was Paul O'Neill and Michael Crease were having a chat, and they said it could be that he's just seen Jade Edwards out of his, this is at Thruxton. He's seen Jade Edwards coming up, and he's just glanced over, hasn't seen that Glyn Geddes lifted, panicked and gone for the brake because he's a left foot braker, hit the clutch, thought he'd braked, and it all went. They said that was a possibility.
I don't know if Andy's. I don't know if he's just getting into left foot braking. I don't know if he was always a right foot braking. He's getting his left foot braking, and he's trying to. The thing is, the championship's so competitive now. You're doing anything to be faster, and if you're not a left foot braker, you are at a disadvantage. Whether it's half a tenth of a second a lap, whatever it is, you're at a disadvantage if you're a right foot braker. And he's probably just pushing it with the left foot, but he went for the clutch instead of the brake. And it's not like he didn't try and brake. He did try and brake. He just didn't hit the brake. But he's not maliciously. He didn't maliciously go out of his way to cause an accident. It was an accident, through it's an accident which shouldn't happen. I agree. Not at this level, it shouldn't happen. I wouldn't be hitting the clutch pedal. But at the end of the day, it's because everyone's pushing so hard to find anything they can to find an advantage, and you're trying to learn on the spot quite quick.
Yeah, but you said it. That's what it is. It's an accident. It happens, unfortunately, and it's just it's the keyboard warriors. They come in and go, "Oh, the brake lights didn't come on. He didn't do this. He didn't do that." No one knows what went on in the car, and I just think, we're not experts. I mean, you guys know way more, way more than what than us, about what goes on in the car. And I just thought it was really off that he was pretty much hounded out of Snetterton. But
no, I agree, completely agree.
That shouldn't happen. I've never seen it. I've been watching motorsport for 35 years, and I've never seen someone hounded out of anything. And I think it's kind of been swept under the rug as, oh well, it's Andy Neaton, it's an accident. Well, no, the aftermath shouldn't happen because he's got a family as well. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. But no, thank you for clearing up. I've just seen, we've got Kales Cole, the young lady I mentioned at the start. She's in. She said, "Oh God, I'm a left foot breaker." You'll be fine. You're absolutely fine, Kales. You'll be fine. Just don't hit the clutch. So you got to the 2011. Excuse me, Arena Motorsport. Then you moved into the World Touring Cars. That was with Arena as well. Did they have one eye on the touring cars, or were they already there? I can't remember what the deal was.
No, so we hadn't gone to the World Touring Cars before. It was the first year for us.
Right.
And hang on, birthday balloon, and the dog's got it. Hang on, that's it. That'll make a noise. Yeah, see, it was my eldest Freddie's 8th birthday this morning, so we had balloons all around this kitchen table.
Happy birthday, Freddie.
Yeah, cheers. No, the World Touring Cars was a really, really good move, I think, at the time. We needed to have a change. And it was me and James Nash. And it was a tough first year because we weren't allowed to build the car for some reason, no idea why, to the same regulations. So we weren't allowed to have the same front geometry, which was around 4 seconds lap slower. It was quite painful, not going to lie. We're just hanging on. And one round we went to Slovakia Ring and we did build the car with almost the same geometry before we then they said you have to take it off the next round. We were I think 3rd fastest in free practice or something. So it shows you we could have been there. But fundamentally, we did design a car which had a lot of downforce, and we had a car which had a mount tune engine which was like a rally engine, which had a lot of torque and not horsepower. Not knowing that a lot of the circuits we go to, like Shanghai Formula 1 circuit, is like a 1.2 kilometer long straight. And as I came out the last corner, I selected 6th gear, and then you're sitting for a kilometer in the same gear, not going that way fast. Because you do need horsepower, it's not just torque. So it would have been a very good British touring car. It's currently being rebuilt at Motorbase as we speak. And because the World Touring Car engine was like a thoroughbred engine, they were quite expensive. It's getting rebuilt with a British touring car engine, but de-restricted. So it will be faster than it ever was in the World Touring Cars.
Wow.
And it will be a really nice car to drive. Which we'll use it for track day at some point, which would be quite fun.
Yeah.
That was our first year into it before I then went with RML, which had just been 4 times world champions, with Ivan Muller and Rob Puff and Alan Menu. I then was teammates with Ivan Muller, which was awesome. I still think Ivan Muller is the greatest touring car driver of all time.
Not going to hear too many disagreements.
I've pretty much worked with every single one of them. I was chatting to Gabriele Tarquini at the weekend. He's there with Hyundai. And I know Tarquini is very good, but he's one of the only ones I've not worked with as a teammate who is a legend. But I do think Ivan Muller's the best. He's 10 times ice racing champion, and and he's also multiple world champion, British champion, you name it. He wins everything. And I do think he's a nice guy as well. His English is good. I think his English sense of humor is brilliant. Like he's very sharp, on the spot, funny. And his nephew Jan is doing incredibly well. Obviously,
he's reigning champion, isn't he? Won last year.
Reigning champion, WTCR champion last year. Yeah. He's been taught by the best mate, so it helps.
Not doing too bad. You mentioned about Gabriele Tarquini, bit of a inside track for anyone watching. I've been in contact with I believe it's his son. Okay. So we're going to try and put something together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I just want to, just quickly in that first year of the touring cars, I've just made a note of some of the names that were in there. I'm going to ask you if you were a little bit daunted by this when you went in, because, I mean, obviously you're confident in your own abilities, you always were with that first race at Brands, but some of the names in this series, we had Ivan Muller, Rob Huff, Alan Menu, Rickard Rydell, Colin Turkington was out there, Gabriele Tarquini, Tom Coronel, Norbert Michelitz. I mean, that's a very, very decent field, isn't it?
Solid. Yeah.
That is a solid field, especially Tom Coronel. We had Tom Coronel on for a chat back in October, and the guy's an absolute lunatic. He's absolutely brilliant.
I love Tom. His best teammate. Everyone goes, "Who's your favourite teammate?" And I think the most fun, 100%, is Tom Coronel. He's like, "Yeah, stay off the curbs." Like he's just so Dutch. I love him. He's brilliant. His sense of humour. He's so proactive on social media. Nothing's too much, problem. And he does have a ridiculous PR company behind him. Like he's like the most famous person, along with Max Verstappen in Holland. Him. So Tom Coronel has a twin brother called Tim Coronel. We were Dakar Rally together, but their middle names, because his dad was an Alfa Romeo touring car driver. One's Alfa and one's Romeo. Yeah,
so, I think Tim's Alfa and Tom's Romeo or Romeo.
That's correct. Yeah.
I mean, that is a proper motorsport family, isn't it?
Yeah. And what's cool, last weekend, Tom won the Zandvoort
ETCR Europe.
ETCR race. Yeah. ETCR Europe race, and his son Rocco won his karting race on the same day. So that's really cool. I remember me and Max, when we raced together, my brother was in British Formula 3 and I was in British Touring Cars on the same weekend, and I remember I finished first or second. I think I might be second. I think Turkington won it in the wet, and I was second at Rockingham. And my brother won Brands Hatch GP and held Daniel Ricciardo and Ericsson and Bottas and all these drivers all behind him. And he won with Carlin Motorsport in British F3 at Brands a weekend. I can't remember if I was first or second. I can't remember. I got a weird feeling we were both first, actually, but I, for some reason, think Colin beat me. I was thinking the wrong year. But I remember I was at Rockingham and Max was at Brands GP, whatever year that was. Yeah. It was really cool. Yeah, it was a cool moment. And I was very happy for Max that weekend. He was racing, actually, out in IndyCars that weekend. He finished 10th. Yes. It was a great race. He was leading till the last 7 laps of the race.
There was a yellow, wasn't there? Was it? Was it Ed Jones? Ed Jones, I think, went off. Suspension went, and he pitted. But I was keeping an eye on him, and obviously he got to the end of the Indy.
Ed Jones used to race for our team, Carlo Motorsport, and he was IndyCar light champion. Yeah.
Oh God.
Max finished 10th for the weekend, which was brilliant. It was cool. He was leading for a while, and he did a couple of awesome overtaking maneuvers. Right at the end, he went around the outside. Safety car, which was mega. So I was really happy for Max. And it was like Happy Father's Day from Max, and then me, it was like, well, I was in second place until I got a puncture. Otherwise, that would have been a Happy Father's Day as well for Dad. But he was sat there from his hospital bed because he's just had a hip replacement, and so he was tuning in on Eurosport to me and Max on the laptop to watch him. So it was a big weekend for us.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. I'm gonna get onto Max in a little while. I mean, just a quick one though. You said you went to Ray Mark Racing, RML, sorry. Chevrolet Cruze, and I've just got it on my notes here, straight out of the box, 2nd and 5th at Monza, 3rd and 5th at Marrakesh. Marrakesh looks fun. Looks like a fun circuit.
Cool.
And it was just like solid, and then you got the first win. Now this is bad. I haven't seen any motor racing here, but this is the first circuit, I think. Sorry, the second circuit outside of Europe that I went to was out at Sonoma. I was on my honeymoon. We went to Las Vegas and San Francisco, and then went up to like the Napa region for wine and relaxation.
Wine, 100% go for the wine. It's brilliant.
It was excellent. And I think it's AJ Foyt has got a wine sort of. He's got a vineyard up that way, which I only found out afterwards. I was gutted. I was going to go and see if go and get a bit of Foyt wine, but we stopped in at Sonoma on the way home, and that is an absolutely gorgeous circuit. It's in the hills there.
Brilliant.
And you got your first win there.
It's incredible. It's like Knock Hill. It's got loads of steep hills. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it.
It's like no grandstands. You're just on the hill, aren't you?
It's just an incredible circuit and great atmosphere. And for me to get my first win out in California was really cool. I was at 2013. Was it 2012?
13. I've got on my notes.
Yeah, that's right. It's 2013. I won in my first FI World Touring Car win in California, but in 2005 I won at Laguna Seca in LMP1. in the ALMS Championship. So I've had 2 wins in California, and it's a really cool thing to say, isn't it? You kind of you forget about it. It wasn't just writing my stats out the other day. I've had like 101 podiums or whatever it was, but you don't realize until you actually write stuff down. You forget, oh, I've done that, twice in California. You just forget. It's like it's really cool. I've had a couple in China, and it's just you start like writing everything down, and I think I've actually had a really nice racing career. I'm just missing the title outright. It's called South finished 3rd overall in the British and the world touring cars, and I've won the independents, which is your best in class, but I just need to win the thing outright. That's kind of my next thing on my bucket list, and I'm not going to stop, mate. I'm 36, and I'll keep going until I'm 60, like Gabriele Tarquini. I'll keep going until I can win it.
He won the world, didn't he? What, 3 years ago? 3 years ago?
Something like that,
Age 57 or something, and he won the world. So, loads of time. Yeah, I'm still young. Yeah. You mentioned about China. You might have seen I put a thing out about that battle with Ivan, that race won towards the end of the season in 2013. I mean, and you mentioned about the straight out the back of the Shanghai circuit, and you've obviously got a toe down there, and that was awesome. I can remember watching the highlights of it, and
it was really, really close.
But because obviously you're a Brit, and there's a few sort of Brits in there that year, and you were going for the win. I remember when I saw the highlights, I didn't know the result or anything. I saw the highlights of it, and I leapt off the sofa when it happened. I was watching it. I was just cheering you down. Because you won by was it 1,000th or 100th or something?
I think it was 2,000ths of a second I won by, I think.
Jeez.
And then when I was with Jason Plato at Brands Hatch GP, when I was in the Ford in 2011, it was. I think it was 2011 or 2009. One of the years. I can't remember which one in the Ford. But my pad steering, the mount snapped, and the wheel was doing this in my hands. And it was like moving around. So I had no control over the car at all, and the power steering was failing. It was all an absolute nightmare. I was leading the race, and I remember going through Stirling. Oh no, it was a couple of cars before. It was the Hawthorns and then Westfields, and I was just trying to hang on. And Jason was right behind me in the Chevrolet, the RML Chevrolet Cruze, Lassetti, I think it was. And I remember I was struggling. To hang on to the thing with the steering, and I couldn't, with all the G-force with the camber at Stirling, which second to last corner of the Brands GP. I couldn't roll the speed through. I knew Jason was on me, and I had to defend. But when you defend, you're going to get a bad exit onto the start line. But I was thinking I must have enough in me to just stay ahead on the finish line. And he pipped me by 1,000th of a second for the win. So I lost by 1,000th of a second to Plato at Brands GP, and by 2,000th of a second I won though. Ivan Muller at Shanghai. So I've had a couple of very close finishes for first and second. But I've got to say, winning Shanghai was better than winning Brands GP, because it's an incredible circuit against an incredible teammate.
Yeah, you said that you see Ivan as the best, and I think usually around the outside you fainted one way, a bit like Mansell Piquet type thing going on, and then around the outside of the last corner on the curb straight. Oh, it was awesome.
It was nice because he was like, I can't push Tom wide because he's my teammate, so we had to go round 2 by 2.
Right.
But I remember when I was coming up to the corner, I remember coming out the hairpin. It was very slow right-hander at Shanghai before the left for the start line. I remember coming up the hill. We had anti-lag system. Anyone knows what that means? It means you're basically keeping the exhaust gases flowing, so you have the initial bit on the throttle. But if you run it too much, it overheats the engine. So you can only run it like that for like a couple of corners, basically. And I remember thinking, because I'm going around the corner 2 by 2, this corner is going to be a lot slower RPM, and it's still going to be third gear, but the RPM will be low. And I remember thinking, so it's a 1.6 litre engine with a big turbo, you're going to lose the pickup. And I remember as I came out to the corner for the brakes, I thought it's going to struggle on the power initially because the RPM's so low. So I changed my fresh air anti-lag system on the map, so it helped spin the turbo up. So the initial bit on the throttle went, and that's what gave me the edge, and that's what pipped me by 2,000ths on the start line.
Wow.
And that was me changing it coming up to that corner before I braked. And I'm sure it was today down to that reason I just pipped him.
Well, that's probably the difference, because 2,000ths is that it's
but it's just sprawling up the turbo that fraction faster, because the RPM was a bit lower. It's just thinking ahead, and it worked, mate. So It's another cool trophy in my cabinet.
Yeah, job done. Yeah, and it's a great watch. I think I told everyone to watch it. Yeah, great watch. So obviously thereafter you moved on to ROIL or Roll, if I want to call them, alongside Tom Coronel, which was great fun.
Ledge. So Rail Motorsport. So the RO stands for Roberto Ravaglia, who's a legendary BMW touring car driver.
Yeah,
He's the team
legend.
boss, Roberto. So the RO is for Roberto, and then the AL is a guy called Aldo, who was basically the guy who owned the team, who loved motorsport, Italian guy. So that's how the RAL name came about. And yeah, me and Tom Coronel were teammates. We're teammates together. For a couple of years, we had a lot of fun, traveled the world, seriously competitive racing. I remember the best race I had with Tom Coronel was at Hungaroring, actually. It was a really good race. On and off the track, for sure, was one of the best teammates I ever had.
Yeah, he's a lively chap, shall we say. Saying that, and you took another win in Beijing, 2 wins in China, 2 in California.
Beijing was a good one because we were struggling to win in the TC1 Chevrolet. It was never quite as fast as the manufacturer cars, which was the Honda and the Citroen. So going to this slow speed circuit, the capital of China, and we did a big PR thing. We went up the Great Wall of China, and then we had a race coming down. So anyone who's ever been to China, you got the Great Wall of China. There's like this metal toboggan coming down from the top of the wall, where you can sit on these little metal trays or wheels with a pole between your legs, which you pull towards you and it slows it up. Well, I said to all the touring car boys when we finished this pressing, I said, look, I'm the heaviest driver, so I will go the fastest down the hill. So all of you get behind me and slipstream me, and we'll set a new world record down this hill. so I had every single racing driver with their feet touching my back, nose to back, head down, sitting like 80 miles an hour down this thing. I had to start braking because I was going to come out the top of the tube. I felt like a proper, the Jamaican bobsleigh team. I was ready to come out the top. Cool runnings. We had GoPros. I was on my mobile phone trying to selfie video as I'm on the brake coming down the hill. Yeah, stay off the curb. She's behind me, Coronel, Muller and everyone, massive train of us. But then as we got 3 quarters of the way down, we're catching up with this family, which must have left 15 minutes for us. His family's going down really slowly, and I'm like, stop! Hands in the air, flat out with the wind. Mom's going crazy around these corners. I'm pulling on the bar, smoke's coming off the wheels. These things have never been so fast in their life. And the problem is they're all hitting me, going faster, faster. I'm like, no, it's a family. I'd get my feet out on the sides, pulling the bars, smoke's coming off my heels, the pole, everything. I had to stop. I had a tiny tap with this kid, but it was tiny. It was 5 miles an hour, but we were closing in at 40 miles an hour. So it was. I got it down. I got the speed down, but it was a really cool, exciting, scary moment.
Brilliant! Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. I could imagine Tom Coronel screaming behind you as well. Just
Oh, he's loving it. He thought it was all great. He was like, "Yeah, no problem here."
Good lad. Just quick move on. I've got a note here. You moved on to the Citroen C Elise thing. I always thought that didn't ever feel like it should be a touring car. It might just be me. I don't know, but I just thought it wasn't the obvious choice. You had
Out of it not being an obvious choice, today it's the greatest touring car I've ever raced in my life.
Really? Well, that actually answers a question.
All of them
popped up. So there we go. Yeah. Definitely, just said which is your favourite car, best and worst, and that's the best one. Because when I first saw it, I thought, really, it was one of those.
Yeah. It was the hardest. It's the hardest touring car I've ever driven in my life because it wasn't a normal car to drive, and it was set up by 2 guys who were, how should I say it, almost in a pissing competition with how much oversteer one can hang on to. So you had 9 times World Rally Car Champion Sebastian Loeb trying to set the car up with 10 times Andreas Ice Racing Champion Ivan Muller, both of which are the greatest of all time to this date. They are still both the greatest of all time, drifting on ice, snow, tarmac. And they were both setting this car up. to drive it to start with. I was like, if I brake in a straight line, it does a 360 spin. How on earth do you brake in a straight line without spinning? That's what it was like to drive to start with.
Wow.
And it was a real hard car to drive. And the first year I was third in the Independence Championship, and I don't know where I was in the championship first year in that, but it wasn't that good. And then the second year, I'd figured it out. I did a really good winter test program with Sebastian Loeb Racing and my engineer Nick, and figured it out a lot at Monte Blanco, I think it was, near Seville in Spain. We did a lot of testing, and I really figured out the car a lot on how to drive it. And and then we end up being FI World Touring Car Independent Champions, and we were third overall. And what was amazing was we had 3 Volvos and 3 Hondas, which were spending, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 30 million euros to try and win the championship. And there's me popping up in my independent car, and I split the field. So it was the coolest year for me. And I was racing against Med Binani, who was very fast in that, who's also now like European TCR champion. And Rob Huff, who was world champion, was in the other Citroen. I managed to get a podium at nearly every circuit around the world, basically. And it was an incredible car to drive. And I got the Neuschleiferring lap record in 2016, I think it was, or 2017, which is a cool thing. I was up there with the Ring Queen, bless her, Sabine Schmidt.
Yeah, God bless her, yeah.
And, it was, I got a second and a third. I still break out in sweats in the middle of the night that I didn't win. I was in the lead for a split second effectively, but I lost the switch back to Lopez, who was like, triple world champion. But I was gutted. I should have gone down another gear. I should have gone to third gear on the right hander. And I left it in fourth on the tight line, and I lost the exit. And I'm still crossing myself because I had a chance of winning that. But the Neuschleiferring lap record is still pretty good, and two podiums. I'll take that.
Very good. Very, very good. Yeah. I can just about spell Nordschleifer. So
it's pretty tough. My spell check tries to kick in occasionally. Yeah.
Just quick before you just move off the world. There was a round, I think it was in your last season, 2017, there was a round at Macau. Again, come back to Tom Cronell. He said that's one of his favourite circuits apart from the Nordschleifer. He absolutely loves it. How did you get on with Macau and that ridiculous hairpin, the Malco? With the yellow flags?
You know what? So I raced first Macau when I was 17 years old with Peter Briggs and Edenbridge Racing in the BMW 3 Series. Which was until this year, the last time I raced a real drive touring car was back in 2002. And I'm now racing, obviously, 2 in 2 championships this year. Yes. But I remember following Gabriele Tarquini in an Alfa Romeo, who I think was slipstreaming Nicola Larini. And they clipped the rear right wheel on that hairpin with all the lock on, because it's just a straight piece of barrier and you can only just about get round on full lock. So once you're committed to turning in, you've turned in. If you've got your line wrong, you're not going to make it around the corner. You just block the whole circuit. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's Gabriele. He got it wrong and he pulled his rear right wheel off the car. And I was following him. I was 17 years old in this BMW. Yeah, and he just pulled the wheel off. And I remember as I was going past him before Fisherman's Wharf, the next sort of fast right-hander, thinking, wow, these legends are making mistakes. So it just shows you it's a hard circuit to drive. Yeah. And I'm so happy I can say I got a podium. I finished third place in the rain in my last year in the World Touring Cars. I've been taking 5 years to get that podium. It was tough, but and I managed to get. I've got my bronze. It's a bronze trophy with a green marble base in my trophy cabinet, but I'm happy I've got it nevertheless. It's a very hard circuit to drive. Yeah,
I love it. And I think it's the only corner in the world, isn't it? The Malco hairpin that's got a permanent yellow flag.
That's correct. No overtaking, because if you do overtake, you both won't make it around the corner. There's not enough steering lock in the world. So
yeah. I think Tom Cronell said they don't even bother having a guy holding it. They just stick it in the fence and just let it hang. Yeah. The yellow flag there.
Let it hang. You know it's happening. Yeah.
That's crazy. So thereafter, moved back to the BTCC Motorbase. How did that one come about? Did you want to stay out in the worlds, or did you always have an itch to come back in the BTCC?
So the World Touring Cars, very sadly, became not FI World Touring Cars. It's now the FI WTCR, but to start with, it wasn't an FI event, firstly. And secondly, it wasn't a TC1 car. The TC1 era, still out of all the years I've been racing, is the greatest front-wheel drive touring car in the world. You know, it had just, On the Limit was just a dream to drive. It was on the limit, as in fast, crazy on the limit. And as soon as they were going to these new TCR rules, I was a little bit like, well, they're a bit more dull. And it just seemed to me like it was another championship, new out the box. It's going to have a few teething problems. And I was thinking, well, that's why I originally left the BTCC when it went from S2000 to NGTC. So I thought, well, actually, they've sorted out their teething problems, and that's a good time to go back to BTCCs. So I went back, and then I finished third overall in the British Touring Car Championship. And Tom Ingram just picked me to the Independents.
Yes.
Second in the Independents. But nevertheless, finished third overall. And Matt Jackson was in it the year before, and best he could get out of it was ninth. And my teammate Sam Tordoff, who's a really nice guy, really fast guy in qualifying. You know, he finished a couple of points off Colin Turkington when they're in the same car at Westside Racing. And I think he finished 10th in the championship, and I finished third in it. So I had a really good slog in it, and I was fast. And then we tried doing another year in it. By this point, a lot of people were building new cars to the sort of the newer regulations. And my car actually, that second year at Motorbase, was the oldest car on the grid. It was the old original Andrew Jordan one he raced there, which was very old. Wow.
Didn't realize it was that one.
And it became quite a soft chassis, and it just wasn't performing. And then I moved to BTC Racing, and we did a lot of testing, and I genuinely believe we had one of the best chassis on the grid, with the slowest engine on the grid. So it was a very frustrating year for me last year, knowing how good the car was, but slow in a straight line. It was painful for me. And Josh Cook and Michael Crease. It was very painful. And then this year, they've now swapped their engine, and they've now got a really good Swindon engine. And like I said, it's still one of the best chassis on the grid, and they showed that out the box at Thruxton. And I have no idea I don't know what they did wrong at Snetterton, but so that was it. And then this year, I've come up with in the British touring cars, a really, really nice gig with Car Gods, fantastic sponsor, through the Tetrisol brands. And it's like the new Autoglean. It's a very high-end market cleaning products, Car Gods. And I'm with Sicily Motorsport, great team. Adam Morgan is a really nice guy, does a lot of hard work at the team. And he's fast, mate. You know, he's a fast teammate. And he's pushing me. It's nice to have a teammate pushing me again, you know. And I'm learning very quickly with the whole rear-wheel drive gig. And and we're getting there, mate. You know, I still think we need more testing. You know, we're not up to the decade, how many decades of experience Westside Racing have with the BMW. Well, we're trying to learn very fast between me and Adam, the car.
It's like Dick Bennett's on his own. I mean, again, he came on for a chat, and what a legend. I mean, I could have sat there for 3 days and listened to him. But
he's the only guy I know. He still goes out the stopwatch and measures cars between corners and straights, trying to work out the differences. And he's old school, mate. But old school is the best sometimes, you know.
Absolutely.
And I love Dick, and I massively respect him. And it's one of the teams I've not raced at and want to race at. You know, BMW didn't have the budget for me, so I didn't go there. But it's one of the teams I've always wanted to race for.
He actually said off air, and I can probably say this now because we're in the middle of the season and they've got their drivers in. He actually said that it was, you know, that you were one of the guys that he was talking to, and the team were talking to, you know, for this season. But obviously, and he said just exactly what you just said, that the budget wasn't there and it didn't quite come together. But yeah, so my eyebrow went up when you said that. I was like, "Oh, I'd have quite liked to have seen that." But
but you know, at the end of the day, mate, I am in a seriously lovely, beautiful car made by Westside Racing, prepared very, very well by Sicily Motorsport, and we are getting the car faster and faster and faster. Adam had a great round at Snetterton.
He did,
First time there in the heat. We tested there in the freezing cold, which is a very different circuit, and rain, very different circuit. You know, Adam got a 6th and 2/8. which was solid points. It's a brilliant round.
Really strong.
Won't talk about mine because it was a dreadful weekend for me, so I won't talk too much about that one. But Adam really screwed the time out of it. So it shows you that we're getting there with the car. And like I said, I'm looking forward to Brands Hatch this weekend. I think it's going to be wet, so we need to get our wet setup heads on and our wet driver lines on. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I think Adam flew under the radar, didn't he, Snetterton? I mean, people seem to have not even noticed it because of what was going on at the front, and just absolutely brilliant, really solid. Just a quick one. Hopes for the season. Where are you sort of pitching this season? Where do you think you might end up as personally and as a team?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's $1 million question, isn't it?
I think we'll get good after kind of Alton Park test, which is the Goodyear tyre test. I think we just need, like I said, we need a couple more races, a couple more test days, and then we'll be on the money for the second half of the year. So I think the first half of the year for me is kind of testing in public and a bit of a write-off in terms of championship. But I always knew it was going to be a hard first year because, we have no experience as not only me as a driver, who I can give you a front-wheel drive setup. I can go and drive a car and go, it needs to do this, needs that. The front-wheel drive, I've done it for so many years, I just know. I'm a professional front-wheel drive driver. Rear-wheel drive, I'm learning very, very quickly on the job.
Right.
As
are the team, they've had the front-wheel drive work, haven't they?
The team's had, the front-wheel drive and the British touring cars. They're doing a great job with the GT4 Mercedes. But a very different car with downforce and traction control and all the rest of it. It's a very different car. But the BTCC is not like other championships. It's extremely close. So where you might be a few tenths off in a GT car because you're a few tenths off, it's not the end of the world. If you're a few tenths off because you haven't got everything perfect with going to that same circuit for the last 10 years running in a row, you go from first to last because it's so close. So it's tough, but we knew that when we were signing up for more than the year. It was really this year as a learning year, and we're all very open and honest about that. We weren't coming in first year to win the championship, although we all go into it trying to win the championship. You know that it's your learning year, and at the moment I think we're learning very quickly, and like I said, Adam really showed last weekend what the car can be capable of at Snetterton.
Cool. It did a very good job. But interesting. Just very, very quickly, because I'm very conscious of the time. It's been a while. We had Michael Crease came on and was messing around earlier. Good lad. And he's told us about the story when he saw you in Brighton, and he sort of accosted you in Brighton, and then you ended up as a teammate.
So
did he just literally
that's true. So
over the road that
I was down with my engineer Skippy, Greg Simmons, a legendary Australian engineer. He ran me at Arena through all the years in the Honda and the LMP1 car as well. He was doing up his child's bedroom with plasterboard and stuff in the bedroom. I said, I'll come down and help put the plasterboard up in the bedroom with you, as long as we go out for a couple of beers in the evening, mate, and have a bit of a laugh. So that was the deal. I helped him put the plasterboard up in his daughter's bedroom, and then we went out for a few beers. And then this bloke came out with like loads of other guys. Wow, it's Tom Chilton. And I was thinking, who's this guy? And then all of his mates, they did all the scaffolding on my parents' house, which was getting redone up in Surrey, randomly. I mean, what's the chances of that? Anyway, this guy at the time, Michael Crease, had done no motorsport. He was like Jack the Lad, legend, comedian, like all in all, a really, really nice guy. And actually, he bought me a drink. I remember, I think it was the Picture and Piano. He bought me a drink, and I remember to this day, this guy with loads of guys.
The Picture and Piano
bought me a beer, free beer. Didn't want anything in return. Didn't want another drink back. Didn't want anything. I think he might have got a photo on his like Nokia N80 or whatever it was in those days. He was a massive motorsport fan. And he said his dream was to one day race in the British Touring Car Championship. And after only racing in motorsport for 5 years, was in the BTCC and was my teammate. And what a small world it is. And I got to say, for someone with so little experience and to be so old, in motorsport, you're usually quite young when you start off.
Yeah.
For Michael to be so late as well and to pick it up so quickly either means he drives like a complete nutter on the roads and is fully up to speed.
Couldn't
He's just
possibly comment.
natural talent, you know. And
Yeah.
at the end of the year, he was banging on the doors, mate. And
Yeah.
you know, I love the guy. He's great. And you know, he went to Monaco in the Porsche a couple of weeks back, and I think he qualified first or third in his class. Sadly, the race didn't go as well as he was hoping with the DNF. But street circuits are tough, and I can say that because I've done quite a few years at it. You are trying to get door mirrors rubbing every single barrier, and it's a lot harder than a single seater because you can't see your wheels. So it's tough, and you've got the whole build up of Monaco, and it's the Grand Prix, and lots of people are watching. And I think he did a really good job actually, all in all, first time out, and the Porker, which is. It feels a lot faster than a British touring car because it is faster. I spoke to Dan Camish at Snetterton actually, who said to me, "Tom, I've forgotten how fast the Porsche is. It actually feels really fast to drive in a straight line. You know, they are a quick car. They're pumping out a lot of power and got big slicks."
Yeah, and he's out in Austria, isn't he? I think Creasy now is out in Austria doing his F1 thing. I think in support on the Mobile One Cup. Not a bad place to be.
It's a cool place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very quickly, I've always wanted to ask you this. Top Gear, what was your favourite one that you did on Top Gear? Because you've done, what was it, the people carrier, the Toyota Aigos, the motorhomes, the buses, the airport vehicles, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've done nine. On a. I'm trying to think the best one. I think. Oh, it's really hard actually. Which one is the best one? I think probably because it was the first one. Because you know your first one you ever do, it's always a bit like, oh my days, I'm filming on Top Gear. I think the first one was the historic people carrier race because it was the first one. You know, the motorhome racing was a lot of fun. Actually, we're going to go motorhome racing. I really like the motorhome racing. That was really good fun. They made out as though he slept the night in them and all the rest of it. But Anthony Reid and Matt Jackson and Tim Harvey and Matt Neal and me and we just had a laugh and shared, and we just had so much fun driving flat out. Anything. I had a barrel roll, a double-decker bus. You know, I had to drive a taxi, which was built for like.
That's one of my favourite moments in Top Gear. I must admit, the
double-decker bus.
Yeah,
that gave me whiplash. For quite some time. I should have worn the pad around my neck under my helmet, which I didn't. Yeah. But that was a really, really fun moment. And the first time they said to me, "Right, Tom, on turn 2 or whatever it was, can you roll it this lap?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I went in, flicked it in, hit the curb, and then my first natural reaction was to counter steer. So then I put it back down, and they were like, "Tom, we had all the cameras rolling. What happened?" I go, "Sorry, natural racing driver reaction. I turned into it and accelerated." So then let's come around next lap and then just keep turning. And Anthony Reid goes, "Don't worry, Tom. What I'll do in my bus is I'll give you a tap on the rear right, just like in 2004 at Tower at Croft." And he like gives you the year, the corner, the lap, the race when he hit me or I hit him. I'll do the same back to you at that corner in this bus. He's saying it on the radio and we're going around filming flat out. And I'm like, "Okay, Reedy." Then he big hit and I'm off over.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Something that Paul Ablett said, he's gone now, and he said, "Okay, it's great to have Matt Neal and Jason Plato in, their legends." He says, "But none of them have done Take Me Out." That was cool.
None of them were as desperate for sponsorship as me.
Excellent television.
None of them was desperate for sponsorship as me. Clearly, yeah, that was at the time I was very close to getting Schwarzkopf to sign, which was a hair gel sponsor, and it was a big push because that was Talkback Thames TV, which did X Factor the week before, and the same company which make it. Up at the Granada Studios up in Manchester, and it was big viewing figures that on ITV, and it got replayed quite a lot. So there was me playing my saxophone with fireworks coming out at the end of it, but it was purely all set up for me to try and find sponsorship. And I was very close signing, and I had done previously a race with Clarkson in the white. I was in the white M3, and he was in the Lexus drifting. And then that afternoon as well, I was on the double-decker bus. So out of the hour show, they do like 3 things. 2 of them, I was racing them both on the Top Gear, and then I did Take Me Out. So I did like the 2 biggest shows kind of like back to back, trying to get the big push to get this as a sponsor. And if you actually pick up a Schwarzkopf hair gel in a shop and you turn it around and look at the small print, it does say in small print, it says helmet hair proof. Because everyone knew me from my hair when the helmet came out. I had like spiky hair. I mean, not anymore. You know, I'm like married and kids, and it's all changed now. But
same with me when I used to have it all. Yeah,
spiky. And so it's all on the back product. But yeah, it didn't get the sponsorship in the end, sadly. But it does say helmet hair proof on the back, so must have done something.
There you go. Just quick, you mentioned Max obviously doing very well in IndyCar and stuff. I just found a note. This is just a kind of cool thing. Which I didn't realise. Obviously, he came fourth in the Indy 500 in 2017 behind Takuma Sato, double winner, Helio Castroneves, 4 times winner, and Ed Jones. I mean, if you're going to come fourth to 3 guys,
what's really impressive
impressive.
What's really impressive about that whole race was the age Max was. I don't know what age it was, but the fact that he had the most amount of laps ever led Indy 500 at the time. It was like 52 laps he led or something. It was something crazy like that. He led that many laps. Because he went for a risk. He was at Chip Ganassi Racing at the time, and he ran absolutely no wing downforce whatsoever on it. So it was all planned around the fact that if you got the pit stop right and you came out in front, you're the fastest thing in a straight line.
You were off.
The problem with running no downforce is as soon as one car's in front of you, you get chronic like understeer and you get no grip and you go backwards very quickly. So planned it perfectly with a pit stop, came in out on front, and no one could overtake him. You know, as long as there wasn't a car in front of him losing downforce, Max was fast. But Takuma Sato, being that kind of kamikaze guy he is, lunged him like he does, and lunged him 4 laps from the end. But as soon as he got like in front of him, he was going backwards, and then it was like pop, and then he finished 4th. But still, absolutely incredible, and still one of Max's best races. I'd say Max's race he did last weekend, finishing 10th at Atlanta, along with finishing 4th at Indy 500, are probably the 2 best races he's had in IndyCars actually.
I always have a look out for Max, because I always look out for the Brits. You've got Jack Harvey out doing good stuff as well, so I always keep an eye out for the Brits. But he did. Yeah, it was great to see at the weekend. Yeah, really great.
Cheers, right, mate. I'm going to get the washing machine on, mate. I need to go get the clothes washed ready for the kids' school runs tomorrow. So I need, because I can't push play on it because it makes too much noise in this kitchen.
No, I was just going to say we have got the one last question. Your favourite circuit you've ever driven?
Oh, 100%. That's an easy answer. It's the Nordschleife-Ring.
Yes.
The Nordschleife-Ring is the fastest, longest, most dangerous circuit in the world. 166 corners. Out of 166 corners, I think 7 have gravel traps. The rest are trees and barriers. The fact that I got the lap record and a double podium, it says I like the circuit. I love the fact that you're taking off in the air, 4 wheels in the air. There's no circuits I race at anywhere where there's 4 wheels off. There's 2 wheels off every lap at Knock Hill, Brands Hatch occasionally, but 4 wheels doesn't happen. That's 6-gear 4 wheels, and as you land, you keep it flat and you left foot brake and control a drift to the exit, and it's pretty ballsy. And it's not. And if you go, oof, next lap I'll do it, you got to wait like 10 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever, to go back around and do it again.
It's 25.
But that is definitely the best circuit in the world.
Awesome, great stuff. All right, Tom, thank you so much for coming on, having a chat. Really Cheers, appreciate it. Again, in these chats, they rattle on, we get into it. So appreciate you giving up your evening.
I enjoyed it. It was really good questions, and thank you very much for having me on the show.
No, good stuff. And we're gonna be at Thruxton and Donington and the Brands closer. So if we're allowed to try and come over and say hi to you if we can.
Yeah, please do. Look forward to it.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.